We're getting into the first full week of November, and it promises to be packed with game releases. There isn't that one major gigantic game release this week. I think we're still kind of feeling the after effects of the release of Red Dead Redemption 2, so that's probably a good thing. But there are a lot of quality PlayStation 4 titles being released this week, and I want to go over all of them. We've got 10 games to go over, so a sizable amount, so let's get right into this. First up, let's talk about a game that I've been talking up a lot, and that is Tetris Effect, a PlayStation 4 exclusive. It's a Tetris game. You already know what you're getting yourself into. However, being done by Tetsuya Mizugachi, you know that you're gonna get some slick presentation elements. You've got some fantastic music, great visual design, and given the fact that the game also has full PlayStation VR support, that is adding another layer to your traditional Tetris experience. Tetris Effect is hitting the PlayStation 4 on November 9th. Next up, we've got Hitman 2. Yes, Agent 47 is back in Hitman 2, and it's kind of surprising how there's very little anticipation and hype heading into the release of Hitman 2. I have a few ideas as to why that is. The game is being released right in between Fallout 76 and Red Dead Redemption 2, and between those two juggernauts, it's gonna be hard to find a level of anticipation that you would expect for a Hitman game, a storied franchise. However, I also think a lot of gamers were turned off by the 2016 Hitman title. While it was a very good game, its episodic release pattern just pushed a lot of people away. Of course, Hitman 2 remedies that issue. It is going to be released as a full game from the get-go. However, there will be 2 major single-player expansions, so that is something to be mindful of as well. But fundamentally, what we've seen out of Hitman 2 has looked rather good, and we'll find out how good the game is when the Golden Collector's Edition hit on November 9th. Next up, we have Omen of Sorrow. Omen of Sorrow is a classic 2D 4-button fighting game with Unreal Engine 4 power graphics, a cast of 12 characters, so yes, a relatively small-sized roster. However, all of the 12 characters are very diverse and they're distinct from one another. A lot of times you'll see fighting games with a vast roster, but a lot of them cross over with one another. These 12 characters are very, very unique, inspired by classic horror, fantasy, and mythology, and a battle system designed from the ground up to leverage player skill. It features deep combat mechanics that favor movement and spacing over tight execution to provide an engaging experience for pros and newcomers alike. Omen of Sorrow hits the PlayStation 4 on November 6th. Next up, we have Grip. Grip is a high-octane hardcore combat racer packing ferocious speeds and armed to the teeth with heavy weapons. Grip touts the fastest, most competitive racing experience ever, where you can scale walls, ceilings, and anything else you can get your tires onto. You'll be mastering tantalizing tracks, tricks, and perform mind-blowing stunts to race your way across the cosmos. A pretty interesting combat racer. Grip hits the PS4 on November 6th. Next up, we have a PlayStation VR title that's been getting a bit of attention, and that is Dracena. Now, Dracena is a brand new IP. However, what's interesting about this title is that it's being created by From Software, and Hidetaka Miyazaki is heading the project. Now, if you've been living under a rock, of course, From Software created Souls as well as Bloodborne, 2 highly respected IPs, and now they're working on something completely different with a PlayStation VR-focused title. This game has you take the role of an unseen fairy in a secluded boarding school. The player moves around in frozen time, collecting various bits of information that serve to unfold an overarching mystery. The story is said to be a new take on classic adventure games and utilizes PSVR's technology to take gamers on an entirely unique and personal experience. I know a lot of people were upset with the notion that From Software is working on this game rather than a Bloodborne 2, but I'm always happy to see studios try something completely different, and that's what's happening with this title and From Software. Dracena is hitting the PlayStation VR exclusively on November 6th. Next up, we have one of the most notable survival games finally coming to the PlayStation 4, and that is The Forest. The Forest has you take on the role of a lone survivor of a passenger jet crash. You find yourself in a mysterious forest battling to stay alive against a society of cannibalistic mutants. You build, explore, and survive in this terrifying first-person survival horror simulator. The Forest has been one of the best-received survival games on PC, and we've seen a bunch of these survival games make their way over to the PS4, some with more fanfare than others. However, with Forest being as notable as it is, I think this is one that a lot of people will check out. The Forest hits the PS4 on November 6th. Next up, we have World of Final Fantasy Maxima. Now, World of Final Fantasy was released a few years ago, but World of Final Fantasy Maxima looks to be the definitive version of the game. It's the base game with a bunch of new enhancements, including new characters from the Final Fantasy lore, new monsters, and even more fun and excitement. It features an avatar change system, which allows the protagonist to fight as champions, the historical Final Fantasy characters, and you'll fight your way through exhilarating battles as these legendary characters. World of Final Fantasy Maxima, the definitive version of World of Final Fantasy, hits the PlayStation 4 on November 6th. Next up, we have Siren. Siren is said to be an intense survival horror game in where you must use your wits to navigate through a labyrinth underwater base. In episode 1, you must use stealth and solve puzzles to survive, while in episode 2, you must blast your way through the deadly swarms of sirens stalking you. I feel like this game missed timing by just a little bit as we just passed the Halloween season, but hey, it still looks like a pretty interesting horror title. Siren will be hitting the PlayStation 4 on November 6th. Next up, we have Steel Rats. Steel Rats is a game where you can wreck and ride in a visceral and groundbreaking evolution of the 2.5D action arcade genre, fusing destructive octane-fueled motorbike combat and death-defying stunt gameplay, set in a visually stylized retro future world where you can switch between 4 unique characters as you wreak havoc. It has that combat element, but it also has these elements from a Trials game, and that really sounds like a great combination. It'll be interesting to see how Steel Rats turns out as it's hitting the PlayStation 4 on November 7th. And lastly, we have 1111 Memories Retold. 1111 Memories Retold is a World War I adventure game set on the specific date of November 11, 1916. A young photographer leaves Canada to join the Western Front in Europe. The same day, a German technician is told that his son is missing in action. Both want to preserve their humanity and come back alive to their loved ones. 1111 Memories Retold is a game that hardly anyone is talking about, but it does have a lot of potential to be a high-quality, story-driven experience. It'll be hitting the PlayStation 4 on November 9th. So that's gonna conclude this video. Again, we've got 10 brand new PS4 game releases this week. I think it's highlighted by Tetris Effect and Hitman 2 if you're picking up the Gold or Collector's Edition, but other titles like Omen of Sorrow and Dracena could turn out to be surprising hits. I implore you guys to keep those games on your radar. That's gonna conclude this video. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.